Hello and welcome back to Eura's interviews with its amazing members all over the world. It's a great pleasure to welcome back Jeremy Berthoux, President and Managing Director of Conseil, working across France. We spoke really quite early on, I think, when France, I remember you were saying at the time there was quite a bureaucratic system in place. You had to apply for a pass to go outside. And so, I mean, obviously we're all in a very different place now in October, and it's great to see you. First of all, how are you? How's your team? How's the family?
Well, thanks, Dom, and thanks for having me back on the program. I'm good. My family is good, and all the team here is good. Obviously, the new normal needs some adapting to to thrive into it, but we're getting there. Nobody's got COVID that I know of. That's a good thing, and everybody's doing well. So that's the most important thing at this stage, I guess.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm really, really pleased to hear that. It's like I said, it's been a long, confusing year so far, and I mean,
it is.
I know, obviously, I've been reading in the press that things got quite difficult again in France. How is the situation now? What's happening?
Well, we're clearly in the midst of the second wave right now. Although it's pretty hard to compare from my perspective, since testing was so absent during the first wave and is so ubiquitous right now. But we definitely feel that there is a second wave right now in terms of health. Economically, we're not in lockdown anymore, which is tremendously helpful for us and for everybody in France. So the state is, at the moment, there's a curfew in place from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. In select countries, so in select metropolitan areas. So all the big cities, basically, it represents roughly a third of the French population, and the biggest cities are concerned. So Paris, Lyon, Marseille, Lille, throughout France. Nothing happens past 9 p.m. We're getting accustomed to it because it was put in place last Saturday, so that's all very new.
Yeah.
It seems the strategy seems to have shifted from putting everybody under a glass dome and to basically trying to limit social activities, as it seems to be one of the main vectors, and not the sole one, but one of the vectors for the virus to continue spreading. Hopefully, it will have a benefit. It will have benefits for health for the French population without causing too much of the economical downturn that we've seen during the spring months. So that's the status in France. Borders are still pretty closed, partially closed, open, and they have been reopening since I would say the beginning of September to select immigration processes, which certainly helps as we do provide immigration services. And yeah, we're basically in a state of limbo. We're not sure where we are at the moment, and I think it's a state that is shared by many European countries at the moment.
It certainly does seem to be. I mean, it's very interesting that the government decided to go into the curfew. And like you say, so it's localized. It's not a blanket thing. It's according to cases. And I think our government looked very closely at what the French government was doing a month ago, and are sort of doing something.
And we did the same as well, because the rule of 6 that you're very familiar with in the UK, we're implementing it right now. So this is that's something that brings hope to me. The fact that European countries, without concerting too much, without talking to each other too much about the topic, seem to be going into the same direction. So from a sanitary perspective, that's definitely a good sign for me, and hopefully it will mean that Europe will act as one and as a whole, with local differences where applicable and necessary. So that's a positive sign for me.
It does seem much more coordinated now, doesn't it, than it was before? It was very patchy back in the spring.
It is. It is, and yeah, hopefully it will be even more coordinated going forward.
So in terms of, I mean, obviously you're still labouring under a lot of restrictions, borders are closing, opening, closing. How have the past few months been in terms of mobility and home concept?
Mhm. So in terms of mobility in general in France, I would say that there was a downturn. That's quite obvious, but it was more pronounced for obviously international moves than for national moves. So that's the feedback I have from consultants on the ground and from competitors as well. That French moves have been the bread and butter for the past 6 months, so to speak. As you know, we're very much focused here at Home Conseil on international moves, so that's been quite rough. But I'm glad to say that we've managed to stay afloat. I'm glad to report as well that all of our team is still with us today, so that's real relief and one of my main focus that has been for the past few months. So yeah, French mobility has somewhat perturbed a little bit, but international moves have gone down. In parallel, we had to adapt to continue to strive, and obviously we've seen a big rise in virtual moves. We've seen also a big rise in new services with some assignees, oftentimes from the UK, being stuck at home and not able to come back. We had to do some departure services, some close down, some move management as well on their behalf from the UK. So that was I would say a good experience to have and a good exercise in broadening our perspective in mobility. All in all, things are looking pretty good for the mid and long term. The short term is quite hard to assess, and the more time passes, the less predictions I try to make, because they're all coming up short. So at this stage we're looking at a bright future, but we don't know when the clouds will chase.
Again. And I mean, I was going to ask, so I mean, people coming into France are you know, when you are assisting international expats, are they under quarantine for a minimum period when they arrive, or not?
There was a quarantine at some stage, but now testing is mandatory before you even board your plane to come into France. So quarantine is obviously applied to those that are sick or found out sick once in France, but it's not a blanket as well. So yeah, it's there are restrictions, but they would apply before you even board your plane.
That's so much more sensible than what's going on in Britain. But anyway, I won't talk about that. So, I mean, tell me that. I mean, I know the French government was very proactive with financial assistance. What's the situation now?
Okay, so the financial assistance is going down as well.
Right.
Obviously, not sustainable for the government to take in charge 100% of salary on behalf of companies, of private companies, for half a year. So the financial assistance is going down, but it's still there. As an example, Home Conseil is still under what we call partial activity. So that's basically the French furlough, and all the team will most probably be under partial activity until the end of the year at least.
Right.
There is another big chunk of the governmental help under the form of loans, which has been a help. Yes, it's a government-backed loan for companies. That was a very helpful. Not so much in our line of business, where most of the fees incurred from a company standpoint are salary, but for industries and companies that have big investments, that was a big help. And frankly, looking at the international situation and situation elsewhere in Europe, I would say that French is on a lifeline from the government at the moment, which will, I think, delay the biggest chunk of the impact of the crisis. So I think 2021 will be very disparately impactful on companies. Some of those who have leaned very much on loans will find 2021 to be very, very hard on them, and those who have tried to be frugal during this period will find it less impactful. So as oftentimes with France, most of the money, if not, well, a majority of the money goes through the government at some point. I think it's more than 50% of each euro that's created that goes through the government at some point, and that really has a soothing effect on the private sector as well. But that means that the much like the the COVID curve, the economical curve is flattened out, but it's harder to recuperate after that. So I would expect 2021 to be a hard year for the French economy as well.
That's so interesting because, I mean, the government has been incredibly proactive. And I mean, from what you're saying, I mean, so how do people feel about how the government has acted? Are they broadly supportive?
Well, it's France, so it's hard to get broad support for political action. I think the support is, I would say 50-50. One thing that's quite disconcerting for me is all of the conspiracy theories that we see rising during these types of trouble, and basically it's a bit of that as well. So I think personally the measures were making sense and still are. Perhaps things could have been done better in many respects, but I think part of the population shares that feeling, and part of it is really just not into politics anymore, and whatever the government will do will be seen as part of a bigger scheme or something like that. So it's a very polarized political field right now. Yes.
That's so interesting that you say that, because again, you know, I'm sure you've spoken with your colleagues all over the world as well, and people, you know, this is kind of the discussions we're now having, is how much longer are people going to, you know, be broadly supportive? And tell me, so how is the kind of national mood in France? How do people feel? I guess it's very local, right? If you're under curfew, you feel differently.
I think it's local, and it's also a generational thing. I mean, being nearly 40 myself, and having a child makes it so that the curfew is really not that impactful to me. If I was half my age and without children, that would be another topic. So I think the divide is more generational on it, and the mood is really polarized as well. Some of us have faith in the future, and some of us really have dropped any kind of trust for public authorities and the world in general. So it's really a battle of the half glass full and half glass empty at the moment. Hopefully the half glass full will win. We're in France after all, but it's the mood at the moment.
It's so difficult, like you say, the generational thing. I hadn't really put that into a context before, but you're so right. And you know, here, like you say, for me, it doesn't really make any difference. By the time 9 o'clock, I'm about to go to bed anyway. But you know, if you're a student, you're starting off a university career, all of those avenues are closed, and that's a huge impact on the psyche of people as they, you know, go into their future.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough.
Exactly. Yeah. On the bright side for mobility, we've just had yesterday the Brexit platform put in place, so that's some business for us, helping UK citizens to remain in France. But that's there are good signs if you're looking for them, and there are bad signs if you're looking for them. So I think it's just a question of outlook, but obviously some of us are in a better position to be optimistic about the future than others.
Absolutely. It's a very individual thing. I was talking to one of our board members yesterday. You know, there are those of us who are quite positive by nature, and there are those of us who are not so positive by nature, and it's affecting us all in different ways. It's been really great to catch up. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate your time. And it would be great to catch up again sort of after Christmas in the new year, find out where we all are. But in the meantime, stay well and safe, and I hope everybody's good and stay positive as much as possible.
I will.
And great to catch up with you. We'll catch up again soon. I look forward to it.
Sure.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you.